So my statement for my action research poster presentation is that the literature is quite clear. Children need to start learning how to read between the ages of 4 to 7, or else they'll face major difficulties reading in later grades. So it's really important that teachers devote a lot of their time in grade 1 to getting the students to the appropriate reading level by the time they leave the classroom. A statement of my research problem is just that there are a variety of challenges that grade 1 teachers face. So, there's that jump from play-based to the structure of a grade 1 classroom, which is sort of tough for teachers and students alike. And teachers are also finding that kids coming into grade 1 aren't where they need to be in terms of literacy already. So you're already starting with kids who are a little lower than they should be. And so that just slows down the whole process, regardless of how effective an educator you are. So it just is to show that we really do need to focus on literacy heavily in the first year. So my question is, how do we ensure our grade 1 students are literate by the end of the year, and what programs are the most effective in that endeavor? So I've got literacy level for some of my terms, which is obviously describes the level at which a student can read. Effective instruction, so how effectively are teachers getting across the information in order for kids to learn, and the different instructional strategies where, like, what sort of instructional strategies are teachers using that work, which ones don't work, and yes. So I've got, I found 3 pertinent articles. So the first is a long-term study that evaluated which reading programs are the best for grade 1 students. So that one I really liked. The second one was how does our education as teacher candidates prepare us for teaching literacy at all? So are we leaving teacher school with enough confidence, but also enough education ourselves in order to teach it? And resource 3 looks at why are students entering grade 1 with such low levels? What is the play-based curriculum not doing? So summary of my first resource is that the qualitative study, so it looked at basically the point was to see which program would get kids to sit successfully at a level 3 in their DRA assessment. So it compared LLI, so Language Literacy Intervention, and Reading Recovery programs, which are both well-known Ontario-used programs for literacy. And interestingly, it found that 47% of students in the Reading Recovery program met the first grade benchmark, whereas only 35% of students who were doing the LLI met the first grade benchmark. So that's an interesting thing. It goes to sort of show that Reading Recovery is maybe the better program. So again, of summary 2, just how are teachers teacher attitudes and teacher education programs getting us to where we need to be in order to help kids learn the material? Teachers obviously have their own sets of beliefs when they come into a classroom. This study took place in New Zealand and factored in about almost 250 kindergarten teachers, and basically showed that it asked them a bunch of questions about their attitude towards teaching literacy to students. So they went on to say that the emphasis of teaching writing and pre-service education would really be beneficial. So there's not enough teaching teachers how to teach writing, essentially, so they struggle with that. And the last one I found really helpful because it is a U of T, so an OISE Ontario-based article, and it dealt with what's going wrong in kindergarten. Why aren't kids coming to grade 1 with the needed knowledge? So my research plan is that I am going to have conversations with the school resources. So with that, I mean principal, colleagues, learning resource teacher, literacy teacher, student observations and anecdotal records. So this is my quantitative observations. So I'll observe grade 1 students and make notes of the gaps in their literacy comprehension. So how many students struggle with literacy? How often do they need direction? Like, what's going on here? I want to see what's going on with grade 1. And of course, like, something that that is really helpful is the online literature. So there are a lot of articles and research out there already. It's really important with this sort of research to look at what's already been conducted and how can I use the research that's out there to help me narrow my focus and also just come up with a more cohesive plan. And yeah. So yeah, I want to make sure that in order to get the most well-rounded approach to my data collection, I want to make sure that I consult the experts. So my journal reviews, and even going so far as to contact literacy experts, both within the board, within my school, and anywhere else that, maybe a faculty of education, anyone who's got some real experience with literacy and the primary grades would be helpful. And then a little closer to home, using my school resources. So talking to people within the school who have taught literacy, who've maybe had experience with both of those programs. The grade 2 teachers, the kindergarten teachers, like let's talk about what they need from grade 1 students going into grade 2. And so one of my biggest things to ensure validity and reliability is varying my information sources. So not only drawing from the experts and my colleagues, but also looking at the kids and really taking some really detailed notes on what they need personally. So the participants would be, again, the people I mentioned. So principal, grade 1 team, kindergarten team, grade 2 team, learning resource teachers, literacy school teacher, and the setting would be in the school. So the ethical considerations, I don't have many. This isn't the nature of this research question. Confidentiality is really not a concern. I'm not worried about sharing too much information. There isn't really no secrets are here. Essentially, obviously, I would let the parents know what's going on and get the okay from the principal. But really, I'm just providing strategies and benefits to educators who teach grade 1 and just to help people out. So there's not really anything big for ethical considerations here. My timeline chart would be the entire year. So I would start my literature reviews in August just to get an idea of what I'm working with according to the world out there. What do they know already about teaching grade 1 in terms of literacy? And then continue doing that sort of in my spare time, I guess, up until January, maybe bi-weekly I have here, and then anecdotal notes from serving my students. Now that would start mid-September to December, so basically as soon as we're starting literacy. And then conversations. So I'm talking to team teachers, I'm talking to the principal, I'm talking to the literacy resource teacher. I want to find out what's worked before, what's going on from their perspective. So yeah, the data analysis of my literature review. So my first data source will consist of conducting research into the best types of literacy programming for grade 1. So I want to begin my research again, like I said, near the end of the summer in order to provide myself with the tools and the time needed to conduct a real sweeping literature review. So I'm going to look into what supplementary literacy programs are most effective for grade 1 students because I'm hoping to implement one. And I want to do that by January. So yeah. And as I start the process, I may find that I need more time, so that's why I want to start in August. Conversations are really important, so I would be sharing my literature reviews, anecdotal records with members of my school team. So it would be carried out by myself, this project, but I would also be, I hopefully would get the help and support of other grade 1 teachers who want to know the same thing I want to know. So, hopefully those team teachers would do their own online reviews and we could collaborate and do this as a group. And for my anecdotal records, so this is the best way to keep track of where my own student needs are. So the first 6 weeks, there would be a lot of getting into the routines, getting kids familiar with their new roles, getting them away from the play-based mentality. So proper insight into their literacy levels are not going to be there during those first few weeks. So once the routines are established and once the time is right, I'm going to keep track of the various levels of my students, who's where and why are they there. Or, is there some sort of link between the kids who are reading pretty well and the ones who aren't. So yeah, so that's in a large part, it looks sort of like what I'm going to do. I rushed through it a bit because I tried to do it before and I got to 15 minutes really, really quickly. So yeah, I do think that this kind of project would be really helpful for grade 1 teachers because literacy is so important. And like I said, if you don't have the literacy foundation in the early grades, by the time they're 7 or 8, you're really they're gonna struggle for the rest of school. And I mean, I almost think there's no point in teaching anything else until you have literacy down because you just need it for everything. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.